We are all pumped up for a brand new week of Village Vice. He is Zach Blackerby with some really good looking hair, and I'm Brad Law with hair. And it'll be, we're like 117 days away, Zach, from being at Jordan Hare for Auburn football. You like that link? You like the tie-in?
Yeah, I'm. Nobody double checked to see if that number is actually right or not.
It's right. What do you mean nobody double checked to see if it's right? It's right.
Okay, all right.
Are you checking right now to make sure it's right?
No, I was, but you're so confident I buy it. That's fine.
It's right. So, no real noise from Auburn football in the portal in terms of guys that are coming to Auburn. We certainly heard about a guy who is not coming to Auburn, but no additions, I guess, since our last show to the Auburn football roster.
Nope, which is a little bit of a surprise. Cole, the former San Jose State corner, seemed like a good fit for Auburn, but he visited Texas first, and they must have made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. And you and I have gone back and forth about this, but getting that first visit in the transfer portal, it is a different game than wanting the last visit on the recruiting side of things. So, Auburn was kind of the victim of that. They were second in the line of visits several times during the December window, and there were several folks that would have been great fits that Auburn never even got the chance to host, and it's the same with Cole. So doesn't happen, but I'm sure they'll find some other defensive backs in the portal if that's their direction that they want to go.
Yeah, if they feel like that's necessary. If you can add someone like him to your roster, clearly you do that.
Yeah.
The question at this point is of the guys left, and we talked a little bit about this last week. It's kind of the ongoing portal conversation. Can you make your roster better by adding somebody who can be or at what point are you making your roster better? Like where's the balance? Are you adding a fifth string guy?
Right.
Well, that probably you don't spend a lot of time on that. If you're adding a third string guy, especially in the secondary or linebacker, sure, it makes a lot of sense to do that. But not if the NIL package to get him is starter on the level that you would offer to a starter. That's just not wise. So it's a balancing act. You got to be wise, and you got to fill spots that will actually help your team.
Yeah, and at this point of the offseason, I mean, we talked about this last week. Most teams have their roster pretty much filled out. And then you're almost looking, okay, what can be, a solid depth piece for this year, and then be a potential starter a year from now. Well, the transfer portal, it's all about that instant gratification for most of the guys in it. We say it a million times. There's a million different reasons why folks may enter the portal. But when you look at some of the guys who Auburn has reached out to based off of reports or planning to host on visits, a lot of the last few have been true juniors, guys with 2 years less of eligibility, because Auburn doesn't really have a junior class right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with, okay, be a piece this year, get a chance to start your senior year in the SEC with the potential, to say, hey, NFL, look at what I'm able to do moving forward. And to me, that's not going to be as appealing to some folks as it is to others. And so that's going to be something that they're going to have to balance and see. But to me, as far as like losing out to some of these guys in the 2024 year, I don't think it's a huge deal. But when you look ahead to 2025, like it does seem to make a little bit of sense why they needed them.
Sure. I also think that the deeper you go beyond the closing of the portal, the more likely it is, and I said something kind of like this last week, the more likely it is that you can get somebody similar in the next portal cycle.
Yeah.
You may need somebody to be a second string guy instead of a third string guy because you didn't fill that depth piece this year, but it is easier to fill that piece next year. And if you win more games in 2024, now you're proof of concept, and now you've got another layer of your foundation on top, then it's even more attractive to come in.
Yeah, maybe more fans are fired up and big boosters are fired up, and you get a little bit more money to throw at people too.
Because that is what it takes. And a lot of people fight that. And even I, on a very recent show, talked about how it is not just the NIL. And I stand by that, because at the end of the day, if school A can offer you XYZ package and school B can offer the same thing, then you've got some other thing. But I talked to a coach today on campus, and without naming the coach, this coach said because I asked, I said, how much like the NIL piece, what percentage? I know it's high, but what percentage of that? He goes, when it comes right down to it, when it's really time to make the decision, it's all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. I'm disappointed to hear that. I'm also not surprised to hear it. So kind of transitioning from what does the team look like to what is called like which fan base can stomach what it takes and will embrace what it takes to have the best roster.
Yeah.
Because never before have the fans been able to play such an important part. It's not just a football staff and recruiting staffers and what can you do to lay out the red carpet and really impress them on a visit. It's not just the facility. It's never before has each individual fan had the opportunity to play a role in your program's success if they're willing to embrace it. And it's true in football, basketball, baseball for sure. Coaches have to embrace it. They've got to have the stomach for it, but fans do too.
Sure. And ultimately, there's going to be a few huge players at every school where, those big donors and boosters, they're going to be able to really sway the success and failure of classes. And I mean, that goes back to what Auburn fans said a ton while Gus Malzahn was here, where there were Auburn fans that legitimately believe that some big boosters were involved in the game plan, which is ridiculous.
Right.
But that was an era that we lived in as somebody who did talk radio in Auburn during that era.
Yeah.
Those were calls that I got all the time and had to like put them on the air. Like there are people that believe that. Well, now, I mean, as far as giving access to folks, it's like if somebody's going to help you get 4- and 5-star guys or, potential transfer starters in the portal, I mean, how do you not give them access? Because you want the money to keep coming. So, I mean, I don't know if it's what's best for college football. I do like the transfer portal and I do like NIL. I do think introducing them both at the same time at this form was, I mean, I think it kind of unlocked what this was. There was no like gradual, like dynamic to this at all. It all happened at once. They opened the floodgate, but I like them both individually, but together it has kind of created something that I don't know how, but a lot of people didn't see it coming.
The NIL piece along with the transfer portal was like giving somebody working out for the first time ever steroids for their very first workout, because one without the other, like one absolutely hyper activated the other one. The transfer portal without NIL is not the monster that it is. NIL without the transfer portal is not out of control as much. It is still out of control, but not as much as it is, because now you got a guy. All right, let's say I'm a basketball player, because those are smaller rosters. Why would I not go into the transfer portal? Because I'm testing the market, especially given the stat that I just rolled out there about how your high major teams on average are still 2 or more spots away from having full rosters. So now I'm in the portal and I'm in a dwindling pool of guys that are still in the portal that are quality player. All these guys can play. These guys can play. It's not, you're not going to have anybody out there just can't play. You don't make it in college if you can't play. So all these guys can play. But now my value is increased just by testing the waters. Why would I not? The transfer portal without NIL is a wasteland. It's like a black hole. And if you come out of it, great.
Yeah.
But the NIL piece is a value increaser. Why would you not? You become much more valuable in the portal than you are before jumping in.
But it's like, I mean, it's like corporate America to some extent, right? Like if you want a big raise, you leave and you go work for somebody else. If you want a 2, 3, 4, or 5% raise, you stay with where you're at. You do the whole yearly check-in thing, and it's like, okay, great, thanks for the annual review. But if you want a big one, if you want something that actually changes your life, you go work for somebody else that's in the same space. That's life at this point.
Yeah, the difference is you don't quit you can't quit your current job, and then if it doesn't work, come back. And I guess to a degree, if you well, not always, because if you walk out, that boss I don't think he's real
Yeah,
keen
but that's
on
not what's
hiring you
happening though.
back.
You're not walking out. You're talking, you're answering
Mhm.
an email, and you're saying, "Hey, don't email me here. Email my personal. Here you go." And then you maybe you leave and take a later lunch than normal and go kind of do an interview. Like you're not actually you might mentally be leaving, but you're not like
Yeah,
physically leaving.
I see.
Which I don't know if that's necessarily like too far different. I think most of these people that are entering the portal have a good idea of who's going to be the first to call them once they enter it.
100%, because somebody in their family has talked to somebody else who's associated. The head coach is not calling the player directly, but we know how this works.
Yeah, the loopholes are huge, and,
Huge.
and there's been no effort to close
Yeah.
the loophole. They tried. They
Yeah.
tried very quickly to say, well, nobody that represents another school. And it's like, well, what does that even mean? Like, what does that even mean? Why can't if I'm a head coach, why can't one of my linebackers who played high school football with some other like really talented corner
Yeah.
that's gone somewhere else, why can't he call and just check in on a former teammate? Like,
Right.
you can't stop that from happening. I mean, so yeah, it's whatever. I mean, it's made it more interesting. I don't know what else we'd be
Yeah.
talking about right now if that wasn't the case, but it's just I mean, it's what college football is today. How would you fix it? How would you fix it? Let us know in the comments.
Basketball and baseball. And that's what I'm
Sure.
saying. It's far like for if you want to talk about improving rosters in any sport,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to.
Sure.
It comes down to the NIL package, as long as the rules are structured the way they are. And again, if two NIL packages are the same, then yes, you have other elements. But again, the conversation today where you go, when it really comes down to it, that's what these kids are interested in, and that makes the decision. So I don't know. I don't know how I'd change it unless you put in some sort of structure that you'd never be able to put in legally. Like I think I thought it was interesting. I listened to your Locked On Auburn show today where you talk about the rules in the state of Missouri versus other states and how, in some states you can get college NIL money as a high school senior.
Right.
And in others you can't. I think some sort of structure where there's a cap to what a student athlete can make their freshman year, sophomore, junior, senior, or tie it in. If you want to try to continue with this idea of amateurism, to tie it into progress toward your degree, credit hours earned, something like that.
There's still just so many loopholes though with that.
Sure.
It's like, okay, if the collective can only pay him a certain amount, what's to stop a podcast host,
right,
or some guy who owns a car dealership that wants to do some advertising? And it's like there's so many different ways to funnel it. It's just it's not even worth it. It's not even worth fighting that, I don't think.
And here's the fun part of this. I don't think it has stopped the shady stuff that went on before from also continuing to happen. I think there's still shady stuff that goes on. It's just maybe it stops some of it. Maybe there's less, but like shady people will always be shady people.
So what's shady now? Like what used to be shady is, okay, we'll pay you $100,000 to play here. What's the version of that now?
We'll pay you $100,000 to pay here and just not tie it to we'll you're considering these two schools. It's the day before signing day. We'll staple an NLI to this bag of money and put it on your door and sign it. It's yours. It's not tied to anything. That's still an illegal inducement.
It's just so easy to just say like, well, I need you to make this one tweet and we're going to say it's $100,000 because that's what it's worth it. Right. We'll just say that's market value because it's impossible to. So that might be happening, but if it is, that's really dumb because it's so easy to just say, well, no, we're going to pay you $100,000 to do this to sign this one autograph. I mean if that is happening, I think that's really lazy.
It's 100
on the bagmen.
It's 100% happening. It is lazy and dumb, but there's no policing because now what are you going to do? You can't police anything now. So there we are.
Yep.
And I'm not complaining. It sounds like I'm complaining about it. That's the world that has been created.
That's right.
It's the old Phil Collins and the old Phil Collins song from the 80s. This is the world we live in. So
yeah,
there we are.
Sure.
Can I tell you another world we live in?
One with Roback in it.
Yeah, and that's a good world because they're comfortable, they're stylish, the polos, the hoodies, the performance hoodies. The performance hoodies are the most comfortable hoodies out there, Zach, plain and simple, from Roback. They're lightweight. They're also really soft. You're not going to want to take them off. you may want to sleep in them, just quite
Right.
frankly. Rowback hoodies are the real deal. Don't just take our word for it, though. Go to rowback.com, RHOBACK. Use our promo code VICE20, 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 our promo code. You'll get 20% off that first order, and then you can come back in the comments, as some have already been doing. We read them. You're loving the Rowback gear, and so will you if you'll make that order. Polos, number one, insanely comfortable. Rowback.com.
Yep. Promo code VICE. So there are new betting lines out there.
Yes.
And Vegas seems very low on our Auburn Tigers.
Boy, don't they.
Yeah.
So some of the early lines, I think Vegas has set the over-under on wins at 7.5. And there's a service out there that put out odds on the 5 games in which they do not have Auburn as the favorite. Okay. I'll give these to you one at a time. Give me your thoughts. And this is, I guess, in order where they are on the schedule. They have Auburn as a 3-point underdog at home to Oklahoma.
Fine with that.
You're fine with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not so sure. I got to see what Oklahoma's bringing back, because I think they're a different team. 24-point dog at Georgia.
I think that's about right.
Recent history, that's about in line with recent history.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick that game right now, I would pick Georgia to cover that.
I would like to see Auburn more competitive this year in Athens than they've been the last
100%.
3 times.
But until they do it, I'm not going to predict that they do that. So sure, okay, fine with that.
Missouri is a 10-point favorite at home. Everybody's big on Missouri.
Yeah,
that's the one that sits wrong with you.
Of the 5 that we have access to right now, this is the one that makes the least sense to me. I do think Missouri should be favored just because of last year and what they're bringing back, and it's in Missouri. But 10 points in this one, I don't think I'm quite right with that. I think this one should probably be a 3-point line similar to Oklahoma.
Auburn's going to be coming off an open date, by the way, going into that game. So I don't know. I'd have to.
Who's Missouri have before that? Do you remember?
I don't. I'm going to have to look at it.
I got it. I got it. Go ahead and do the next game. I got it.
Okay. Next game is Texas A&M. They have A&M as a 3.5-point favorite at Jordan-Hare.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, that one's gonna be pretty close to a push, I think, at any point. Oh, that's right. Missouri goes to UMass the week before.
Right. Yeah.
They go to UMass.
Yeah.
Just wild to me. That is just insane.
Do you think you think coming back from Amherst, they're not going to be beat up and all black and blue after leaving Amherst?
No, you still got to go to Massachusetts from Missouri.
I
don't know. I'd rather be in our situation than that, I think, but whatever.
You coming off a bye week? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't, Texas A&M 3.5 tells me that they think Texas A&M has done a better job in the offseason with the coaching transition than Auburn has done going into year 2 with their roster. Like their coaching situation is much better. I know they won at home, but close game at the half and so on and so forth. But a lot of upheaval on that roster with a new coach. So they like them that much. They like them a touchdown better, basically, if you give Auburn 3 points for being at home.
Yeah, and I just don't see that one either. I think let's look at receiver, for instance. I mean, the 2 receivers that A&M wanted, they had Cam Coleman committed. He's starting for Auburn. And then they dropped a bag for Keandre Lambert-Smith. And then Auburn must have one-upped it and was able to get his services. And so, I don't know. This isn't the matchup that it has been over the last few years where you just look in the trenches and you think, wow, A&M is way better because they've recruited way better over the last few years than Auburn. That's just not the case. I mean, you look at a guy like not Philip Bleedy, Isaiah Rakes, who was at A&M the last few seasons, transferred to USC, then now he's here. That's the kind of guy that played for A&M. The A&M doesn't have as depth anymore or a key rotation piece, and Auburn now does have that. And I don't think the lopsidedness of talent in the trenches is going to be as apparent. And when it's late in the season and it's in Jordan-Hare Stadium, and they may be playing for kind of, some personal pride of can they get to that 7th win before they go to Alabama. I think this game's going to mean something. And I think when it comes to time, when it's the week of that game, I think Auburn will be favored.
Yeah. They have picked up like 23 players in the portal.
Well, they lost like all their starters.
Yeah. That's what I was going to do next. They, Max Johnson, they lost 2 offensive linemen. They lost
their defensive line is
they lost Bill Diggs. Diggs, Rake, Walter Nolan.
That's the big one. I couldn't remember his name. He went to Ole Miss. Yeah.
Yeah. Diggs and Nolan is no small thing. They lost Evan Stewart too out of the wide receiver
room.
So,
yeah. And they missed out on 2 of their primary guys at wide receiver with Coleman and KLS. So, yeah, I mean, the receiver and D-line, like those are important positions. I mean, Auburn's learned one of those the hard way over the last decade. So, to me, I don't get it. I don't get the A&M hype. Let me change my stance. This is the line I have the most issue with, not Missouri minus 10. It's this one.
Yeah, I think the Missouri line's too high. But
me too. This one's worse. Auburn should be favored in this game.
I agree with that. I agree. Especially and of course it will change. This isn't, I mean, you could lock it in right now with them if you want.
I think you should. Actually, yeah. I think you should. If you think Auburn's going to win, you take Auburn plus 3.5, 100%.
Take it if you can get it. And then the last one is Auburn is a 15-point underdog at Alabama in the last game of the regular season.
Yeah, and I get this one. I totally get it. Just based off of recent track record. But there's a chance. There's just a chance that this Bama team doesn't go the way it's supposed to if you're a Crimson Tide fan.
Right. Yeah, that one could change significantly too. That one, well, I don't know. That one may be the one that I would want to jump on.
Well, and we've hold on. So you can check out all these lines because today's show is brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. It's where we bet on everything. So be sure to check out our friends at mybookie.ag. They continue to put up futures and props and everything. And when you make your first deposit, use promo code next round. You'll get 20. You'll get some extra money to bet with. Just use promo code next round at mybookie.ag. The Alabama stuff is fascinating. And I know this is something that you're really keen on and you have no issue talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lob something up to you and see if you don't have to swing, but you can if you want to.
Okay.
But it just continues to be a thing with like, okay, they had guys enter the portal in the closing minutes, and it's like Alabama media, the Bama show I listen to the most is Locked On Bama. I think Luke Robinson and Jimmy Stein are really good at what they do. And even then they're like, this is somewhat concerning. Like these are dudes that like we're just leaving and there's no like body as good as them that we're supposed to get or reaching out to in the portal. Like this isn't good. Is the sky falling? No, but like this isn't a good situation. And it seems like there's been pockets of the Bama media that have pointed and said, like, this is different than what we've been dealing with for the last, since Saban's been here. But man, regional and national media, they're just acting like it's not happening. And it's the weirdest feeling in the world where it's like, if you actually like read all the headlines, not opinion, but what's just actually happening. And then you look at the opinion, like it doesn't match. It just doesn't match at all. And it's very strange to me.
Yeah. The Alabama show that I've watched the most is The Next Round. And they are sorry, just a little fun, just a little. All right. And they sort of are giving the same type.
I don't even know what to say.
Right. It'll land in a second on everybody else. Yeah, it's kind of the same deal. Expectations are the same. And now granted, I think their roster is still very good, but they've had a decade and a half to build the foundation. Now they lost a lot of key bricks in that base that was built up. So how strong is your Jenga tower before you can pull a few pieces and it fall?
Yeah.
It may not fall immediately, but it's not that solid, structure that it was before. And like we said in December, you don't go from the coach they had to the next coach and not have some degree of fall off. That's not real. So, again, 15 points. I don't know. I mean, Auburn's lost by more than that the last several times it has gone to Tuscaloosa, but there's a different variable now than has been there the last decade and a half. So,
yeah,
that's what I'll say about that for the moment.
Yeah, and it just feels different. Like looking at some of these lines that are out there, 7.5 point favorite when Alabama plays Wisconsin. That's in Wisconsin, correct?
Good question.
I think it is.
I think it is.
I think it is.
Yeah.
They're at a 4.5 point underdog against Georgia.
Yep.
Just a 2 point favorite against Tennessee. They're
an underdog at LSU.
1 point underdog. Take that for what it's worth against LSU.
That's an interesting one too, because LSU's losing a Heisman Trophy quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think LSU's gonna be that good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think they're gonna be fine. I don't think they're gonna like compete, for the SEC or anything.
Right.
And then Bama's they're only a 1.5 point favorite against Oklahoma. And they go to Norman.
Yeah.
But it's just weird to me. It's like, well, they're only a 1.5 point favorite against Oklahoma, and Auburn hosts Oklahoma, and it's like a 3 point dog there. Auburn's a 3 point dog against Oklahoma. It's just like, I don't know, man. It just, like Vegas doesn't care about storylines, right? They don't care what the national media says about Alabama. And it's just, these lines don't look like they typically do.
That's
and
right.
So for all the folks that say everything is the same, there's not going to be a drop off. Like
Vegas doesn't think so.
Vegas doesn't think so.
They got a bunch of big buildings out there because they're right more often than not.
That's right. We're not right more often than not. But thanks for tuning in anyway. Brad, I think that about does it for today's show.
It does. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Remember, everyone has vices. Make sure Village Vice is one of yours.